On the 12th day of August in the year of our Lord 1570, within the grand halls of the Kremlin Palace in Moscow, Tsar Ivan IV commanded that a competitor, the prince, shall be summoned to appear before the court. The crime attributed to the nobleman was an alleged conspiracy, in opposition to Caesar. However, the consequence for Ivan what had been devised was neither a quick execution, neither confinement. In place of that, the prince was exposed before the court, featuring esteemed noblewomen. He existed subsequently subjected to castration by the executioners as they carried out their grim task, Ivan observed, and provided his thoughts. Oh, what a brilliant idea that is. Truly, I can't contain my excitement over it. The aristocrat found himself compelled to march unclothed through the avenues of Moscow before ultimately facing execution. This blend of degradation, physical breach, and societal humiliation was the trait of Ivan. Yet he was distinct in the annals of time. Across the ages, various rulers have created penalties that incorporated physical, the harshness intertwined with the degradation of a close bond, the natural world, employing the forms of their prey and the essence of dignity within the realm of politics, fear. These penalties were not just about inflicting suffering or ending life, but regarding the total dismantling of the victim through transgression and humiliation, forging an instance so terrifying that no one could defy the power of royalty. This is the tale of the monarchs, who created consequences of a personal nature for the adversaries. Methods that uncover the most sinister elements of total authority emerge merged with deliberate ruthlessness and an all-consuming desire for complete control. Ivan IV, the dread of Russia. Ivan IV governed Russia starting in 1547 and continuing until his passing in the year 1584. The latter part of his rule following the passing of his first wife Anastasia in the year 1560 was characterized by an escalating sense of paranoia and profound brutality. Ivan crafted the Opritnina, an entity existing parallel to the state ruled by his loyal black personal guard, the Opritniki. These individuals held unquestionable power and dedicated horrors committed in the name of the Tsar. Heinrich von Staden, a German mercenary in service as an Oprichnik, I penned intricate memoirs concerning Ivan's practices. As per Yvonne von Staden, not only placed in order inflictions, yet often engaged on a personal level. One of his cherished consequences for aristocrats, believed to be disloyalty, was akin to a public execution of one's honor. The victim would find themselves restrained within a square or in the Kremlin itself. Along with those who carry out the sentences, would extract his organs during the trial observed. Ivan reportedly ridiculed the individuals affected throughout the journey, inquiring whether they were now devoted or engaging in indecent behavior observations.
Lord, remember her
in certain
thy
instances
kingdom.
recorded by Russian
Forgive her
chroniclers,
transgressions,
noted that
both
Ivan compelled the
voluntary and
wives of
involuntary.
executed nobles shall be presented in the courtroom, where they were openly exposed and degraded prior to being sent to convents or shared among the operiki. In the midst of the pillaging of Novgorod in the month of January, in the year of our Lord 1570, chroniclers document that Ivan commanded the women of the city, subjected to public violation as punishment imposed on Novgorod's community, supposed backing of Ivan's adversaries. It is said that Khazar himself observed these horrors observed from a heightened vantage point. It appeared that Ivan's reasoning was rooted in the belief that an intimate humiliation was more impactful than mere demise for intimidating the community. He desired the suffering of victims, and their families must not continue, not just in a physical sense, but also in a psychological one. The collective humiliation that obliterated every ounce of dignity and the dignity of the family. Caliph al-Hakim of Cairo. Al-Hakim Burala served as the sixth ruler of the Fatimid dynasty, caliph ruling over Egypt since the year 996 up to the year Von Anad. He is recalled as one of the most unconventional and ruthless leaders in the history of Islam. Al-Hakim made an unusual announcement, edicts and intricate penalties for those who transgressed them. One of the most peculiar decrees prohibited women from departing from their residences completely. To implement, he commanded cobblers to cease their crafting footwear for women. Women found outdoors, their residences were openly exposed and lashed in the alleys of Cairo as a caution. Modern Arab historians, for instance, Ibn al-Kalani recorded that al-Hakim was also consumed by an obsession with managing his subjects' personal conduct. He prohibited the production and the sale of specific foods he deemed stimulants.
By the decree of His
Vendors
Majesty,
discovered
you are
engaging in
hereby
sales,
charged with
these
high
items were
treason
openly
and
criticized in the
witchcraft against
marketplace.
crown.
It is claimed that al-Hakim held the conviction that by eliminating wrongdoers, his ability to reproduce, he was cleansing community. In a separate recorded instance, al-Hakim commanded that an individual charged with gazing at a woman in an inappropriate manner, neutered and subsequently compelled to don apparel for women and employment in the marketplace as a woman throughout his entire life. This penalty intertwined disfigurement with humiliation based on gender, coercing the victim to exist in a perpetual state of humiliation. Al-Hakim also imposed penalties on political figures, opponents in intricate manners. As he uncovered a plot involving certain individuals, he did not carry out their execution without delay. Initially, he compelled them to become exposed and showcased in front of others. Cairo rode in reverse on donkeys, a degrading situation. At that moment, they found themselves castrated and subsequently executed. Al-Hakim vanished without a trace in the year 1 on one of his evening strolls, likely murdered, perhaps by his own sister, exhausted by his oppressive rule. Louis XI of France. Louis the 11th of his name, recognized as the all-encompassing spider for his political machinations, governed France from the year 1461 up to the year 1483. Although he was a shrewd politician who, with a firm grip on royal authority, Louis was similarly harsh towards his adversaries. Philippe de Comin, a scribe in the service of Louis, chronicled numerous of his creative consequences. Louis constructed iron cages that were so diminutive, inmates could neither remain upright nor recline entirely. The nobles who turned against him were confined in these enclosures for months or years. Yet, beyond the confines, Louis introduced a layer of embarrassment. In public view, prisoners were confined within cages, locations visible to the populace, and ridicule them. A number of inmates were compelled to don solely undergarments or were entirely unclothed. Cardinal Jean Belleleu, who plotted against Louis, was confined within a steel enclosure for 11 years, from the year 1469 to the year 1480. As stated by Ximenes, Belleuter was occasionally removed and displayed as an aspect of his retribution. Louis additionally employed coerced unions as retribution, as he occasionally captured enemy nobles, compelled their daughters or widows to unite with individuals of humble origins, common folk or traders, tarnishing familial reputation through a diminishing union. In a particular instance, Louis compelled the offspring of a dissident. The Duke is set to wed the royal executioner, a profession regarded in its entirety unfit for nobility. The lady was compelled to finalize the union under oversight to guarantee the union was legitimate, introducing an element of degradation and breach. This approach fulfilled two purposes in tension. The family faced consequences through disgrace and simultaneously fostered allegiance from the husband, who received an unforeseen rise in social status. Herod the Wonderful of Judea. Herod I governed Judea as of the ruler of Rome from the year 37 up until the year 4 BC. Recognized for magnificent architectural endeavors encompassing the growth of the second sanctuary. Herod was equally ruthless, filled with suspicion. Fabius Josephus, a Roman of Jewish heritage, the historian meticulously chronicled Herod's atrocities. When Herod harbored doubts about his wife Miriam spurned regarding infidelity, he commanded a detailed inquiry. Her attendants were subjected to torment, as noted by Josephus. The interrogation was marked by various humiliations, of a personal nature to draw out revelations. Upon the declaration of Miriam culpable due to evidence gathered through Herod, commanded her execution in a brutal manner. The year 29 BCE. However, prior to that, she faced public humiliation. Josephus recounts that Herod compelled Miriam to present herself before the courtroom, where direct allegations regarding her purported intimate actions were recounted with diminishing particulars. Herod too meted out consequences to adversaries in manners that assaulted households. Upon his execution, nobles for betrayal, he often compelled wives and daughters to be entrusted to warriors prior to their demise as well. Josephus recounts an instance involving Herod commanded that a plotter's whole family is subjected to public violation in the theater in Jerusalem as a form of punishment, an eventful display prior to executions. This, the interplay of societal unrest and the deeply personal essence of humiliation, was engineered for ultimate fear. Herod desired the populace to recognize that rebelling against the king led to more than just the end, yet it brings about complete devastation of the family respect and integrity. Vlad III, known as the Impaler of Wahtia. Vlad III governed Wahkia in 3 epochs in the 15th century, the majority renowned for his rule beginning in the year 1456 up until the year 1462. While primarily recognized for impalement, an act in which victims were punctured with poles that traversed the form, Vlad employed impalement with particular intent as a consequence of a personal nature. Saxon chronicles of Transylvania and German pamphlets published soon following Vlad's demise, it was noted that he often charged women alleged to have personal offenses like infidelity or prostitution to be pierced through their private regions in particular. The wager was placed in a specific manner to amplify disgrace to the utmost limit of suffering. Within a narrative derived from a German manuscript in the year 1488, Vlad is said to have commanded that a competitor, the nobleman's mistress, shall be impaled and exhibited in the nude at the castle entrance as a cautionary note. The blend of compulsion exposure, transgression by the post, and the public exhibition crafted a captivating spectacle of fear that transcended the ordinary implementation. Vlad also dealt with treason harshly, in great detail. When envoys from the Ottoman Empire declined to take off their turbans in his presence, he commanded that the turbans be driven into their skulls with sharp metal. However, for those who betray him from within his own ranks, the punishments became increasingly intricate. A young lad charged with infidelity involving another, the nobleman's wife, endured castration, and his organs were compelled into his mouth prior experiencing the piercing sensation. Vlad himself oversaw these penalties and reportedly consumed food while executions took place, exhibiting a chilling demeanor that instilled fear the topics he explores. Muhammad bin Tughlaq of Delhi. Muhammad bin Tughlaq held sway over the Delhi Sultanate, established in the year 1325 up to the year 1351. He is commemorated by historians as an exceptional yet unpredictable leader his cruelty stood out just as much as his reforms. Ibn Battuta, a Moroccan explorer who served at Tughlaq's court for many years, authored a comprehensive account of the Sultan's methods. Batuta recorded that Tughlaq devised intricate forms of punishment for those who defied him and those who earned his ire. A preferred form of discipline involved compelling the forced to don a donkey's hide and then be showcased throughout the streets of Delhi, as the populace was urged to ridicule and disdain. Regarding offenses deemed with a more serious tone, Tughlaq incorporated elements of a close and personal essence. Batuta conveyed the situation involving a provincial governor who defied authority, was apprehended, and taken to Delhi. Tughlaq commanded that the governor be exposed in public, his garments scorched, and then he was seated in reverse riding a donkey, a degrading situation as they were showcased. Following the parade, the governor faced a very public humiliation prior to the ultimate execution. In a different scenario, Batuta observed firsthand. Tughlaq suspected that one of his courtiers was engaging in a romantic relationship with a woman from the regal harem. The courtier found themselves compelled to strip bare and was subjected to public punishment on his private areas prior to facing execution. The woman faced a brutal fate, but before that was compelled to observe her beloved's carrying out. Tughlaq provided a rationale for these consequences. As essential to uphold contemporary principles of order and ethics, scholars perceive them as expressions of an atmosphere thick with suspicion and harshness, an ever more unpredictable leader. Henry VIII of England and coerced unions. Henry VIII governed England starting in the year 159 up until the year 1547. Noted for his 6 marriages and the separation from Rome, Henry additionally employed marriage as a means of retribution and exercise authority when he sought a lady at court who entered into matrimony. At times, he compelled the annulment of her marriage and subsequently took her as a partner or spouse. Anne Boleyn, his second wife, faced execution under made-up accusations of infidelity in May of the year 1536. Yet prior to her execution, she was put on display in a public trial where highly detailed descriptions of her supposed close connections were disclosed in public hearing. This was intentional degrading, compelling the Queen to listen humiliating allegations in front of everyone tribunal. Catherine Howard, the 5th wife of his, experienced a comparable outcome in the year 1542. The trial featured intricate testimonies regarding her personal conduct prior to and throughout the union with Henry. Record keepers at the time observed that the clear nature the allegations were peculiar and appeared crafted for the utmost degradation. Henry exerted authority over his subjects' unions. When Lord Thomas Seymour Catherine Parr, Henry's clandestine spouse widow, lacking royal consent, Henry was seething with rage. Even though he refrained from imposing any punishment Catherine directly, he crafted a climate of apprehension where all were aware that unions lacking royal endorsement may lead to dire outcomes. Daughters of nobles who incurred Henry's displeasure were occasionally compelled into unions Henry specifically selected to be with men bring shame to the family. Older men, lacking in quality or of dubious standing. Caliph al-Mustansir of Baghdad and public penalties. Al-Mustansir Bila was an Abbasid caliph who governed officially, dating back to the year 1226 up to the year 1242 Anno Domini, although the true authority resided with the Seljuk rulers. Nonetheless, al-Mustansir upheld spiritual and legal power in Baghdad. Chroniclers from the Arab world. The time recorded that he submitted Islamic law is particularly stringent for personal offenses. Adultery faced consequences through stoning in accordance with Sharia, yet al-Mansur imposed additional layers of humiliation. The condemned were initially compelled to make a public confession in the central mosque, depicting their actions in detail specifics. Subsequently, They were undressed and marched through the streets of Baghdad to the place of execution. This parade has the potential to endure hours, amplifying societal embarrassment. A contemporary historian noted that al-Mustansir commanded that a man those accused of sodomy should face execution, first subjected to public castration, then set ablaze, vibrant. The execution took place in the heart of the square, with the crowd gathered to witness. Al-Mustansir witnessed these intricate public punishments as a means to showcase faith power and prevent wrongdoing. However, the impact aimed to instill fear in the populace by means of displays of brutality that do not assault merely bodies, yet the dignity of the victim remains. Peter the Initial, the Ruthless of Castile. Peter of Castile, known as the Merciless at the hands of his foes and the giver of justice by his supporters, governed from the year 1350 to the year 1369. Chronicles from the medieval period in Spain depicted Peter, a ruler consumed by vengeance, exacted punishment his adversaries in intricate manners, when his Fadri, my half-brother, the esteemed master of Santiago, faced allegations of conspiracy. Peter placed an order. The act of his execution took place in the year 1358. However, prior to that, as noted by the chronicler Sin Embargo, López de Ayala, Peter fue humillado. Fedri, by forcing him to march in chains and partially exposed as it traversed the streets of Seville. Peter likewise imposed a punishment on the women associated with his political adversaries. As he the strongholds of defiant lords, he often compelled the spouses of the rebels and daughters to serve at his administered or allocated them to his own followers as compelled partners. This exercise of coerced unions as trophies of conflict used to bring shame upon the families of adversaries through the degradation of their women. In a case recorded by Ayala, Peter compelled the bereaved spouse of a slain aristocrat to wed the executioner who had taken her spouse, an exceptionally harsh penalty that intertwined sorrow with shame. The woman was compelled to go beneath the looming danger to her children's lives. Justinian Iodora of the Byzantine Empire. Justinian I governed the Byzantine Empire between the years 527 and 565, Anno Domini, often aided by his spouse Theodora. Although Justinian is recalled for the codification of Roman statutes and armed recoveries, Procopius, a historian of the court, penned an unpublished narrative of hidden events in the era of Justinian. There were assertions to portray the shadowy aspects of the royal pair. As stated by Procopius, Theodora, once gracing the stage as an actress ascending to the throne, she exhibited a remarkable cruelty. To women she viewed as competitors or menaces. Procopius claimed that Theodora operated a secluded correctional facility for women. Those charged with ethical transgressions were detained and tormented. The allegations encompassed that inmates were exposed to humiliations of a personal nature. Contemporary historians engage in discussions regarding Procopius's trustworthiness, as the hidden narrative was authored by an opposing faction. Nonetheless, official documents verify that Justinian Theodora and her companions were strict in their enforcement. Regulations concerning ethics. Justinian implemented regulations established in the year 533 that mandated castration as a penalty for sodomy. This law was implemented in a public manner on several occasions. Era in Constantinople, marked by executions serving as public displays, meant to exhibit authority and ethics prevention. Theodora additionally founded an establishment known as metaninoia for those seeking reform sex workers. However, as some suggest, women were compelled to go there against their wishes, essentially a confinement veiled as a place of worship. The 10 rulers analyzed embody varied traditions, beliefs, and historical eras, yet convey an unsettling trend. All experienced humiliation and breach of a personal nature as intentional instruments of governance oversight. These penalties were not instances of arbitrary harshness, yet deliberate strategies aimed at instilling fear in communities via assaults, not just on physical forms, but regarding the dignity and honor of the victim. Community. The experience of deep embarrassment, especially in a personal context, the natural world was regarded as more effective than prompt action, as it entirely ruined the victim's social standing and mentally before the end of life. The families of the victims bore the burden of shame for generations. The practice of compelled nudity, public humiliation, demeaning unions, along with various types of infringement, showed that leaders possessed complete authority control over the bodies of their subjects and existences. Contextualization is essential. These customs throughout their respective periods. Within numerous ancient cultures, communal corporal punishments were widely accepted. Standard and contemporary ideas of confidentiality and human dignity was not present in the same manner. Nonetheless, even by the benchmark's influential figures of their eras, these leaders were regarded as remarkably harsh. Modern narrators often captured disbelief and dread at these consequences. Numerous civilizations emerged on their own comparable methods of discipline, and the close essence implies a certain understanding of the essence of humanity, intertwined with the dynamics of authority. When people achieve complete control without. When it comes to accountability, one often observes a tendency to take advantage of individuals' most profound and intimate vulnerabilities, weaknesses. The human body and sexuality has transformed into arenas where the most evident display of domination deeply felt. The subjects of these leaders were genuine individuals whose pain was vast. Countless individuals suffered horrific mutilations, degraded and eliminated in manners that assailed their most essential humankind. Their narratives warrant recognition, recalled not for its drama, but as a caution regarding the perils of boundless strength. Contemporary communities that the principles of justice, the division of authority, and the evolution of human rights safeguards in part as a reaction to centuries of such abuses. The examination of these severe instances of oppression serve as a poignant reminder of why restrictions on the authority of the state and the safeguarding of human dignity is crucial. No person ought to possess the power to impose such anguish on others. The shift from communities where rulers had the power to command castration and the public shaming of adversaries in contemporary times, the journey towards democracies that uphold civil rights, has been extensive and challenging, constructed upon innumerable lives ravaged by oppressors across the ages.